Hello everyone, welcome to another amazing video. If you enjoy the content, I ask that you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming parts and new videos. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Are you ready? Let's go.
The story begins with a huge traffic jam in the city streets. A sign informs that the road ahead is closed and it would be kind if everyone changed their routes. Traffic was at a standstill, but the green lights start to appear. At that moment, Ming-hee appears speeding on his motorcycle. He realizes that he passed two signals, and both turned green as he approached. Although happy about it, he is also frustrated that he has such a good ability, but he can't use it in battle. He clenches his teeth, upset about this. He continues on his way, and every signal he passes turns green, thus clearing the way for him. Ming-hee then closes his eyes and continues on his way. Earlier that same day, the super admission test conference for the academy was taking place. A man announces that all those students passed the written test, so now they will test their extraordinary talents. The examiner shows a crystal that will be responsible for classifying each student into which rank they will be placed. He explains that there are 5 possible ranks, from lowest to highest: white dust, blue spirit, purple soul, red honor, and black saint. All students position themselves in front of the crystal to be evaluated. He then looks to the side and sees a beautiful girl smiling at him, wishing him good luck. The examiner then asks everyone to touch their respective crystals and warns in advance that the academy only accepts students who achieve at least the blue spirit rank. In other words, anyone classified as white dust, which is the lowest rank, will not be approved. He then places his hand on the crystal, full of confidence, but he is frustrated to see the result that came out. His rank was classified as white dust, so he was not accepted. The protagonist then looks to the side to see the results of the other students and realizes that 4 of the students got the blue spirit rank and 1 student got the purple soul rank. Only Ming-hee got white dust, which is indeed the worst possible rank. The other students watch the test results from afar. Some students start mocking Ming-hee, saying that he is part of a small number of people with an extraordinary talent, which is white dust. They say it is an invisible talent. Another student also mocks him, asking what Mr. White Dust said earlier about getting the highest rank. Ming-hee continued at that moment, unable to believe that he had gotten the lowest possible rank, while most students mocked him. One of the students even says that, how will Ming-hee confess to the most beautiful girl on campus now, since he got the White Dust rank, while Luquan got the Purple Soul rank. Luquan is sad to see all the students making fun of Ming-hee, and also sad that he was not approved in the academy because of the White Dust rank. Back to the present, Ming-hee continues his motorcycle journey, dodging all the trucks along the way, imagining that luck is a damn thing. Throughout his journey, he drives at full speed, while imagining that power is completely useless. The protagonist then becomes serious, and imagines how he will face the monsters that appear with this power, knowing that these monsters could easily destroy a building. Ming-hee then, still sad, just continues his way. He then, still riding his motorcycle, passes under some giant bones. Ming-hee then looks up and sees something shining in the sky. He looks more closely to understand what it was, and realizes that the shine in the sky was a comet, which by the way approached so much that it was passing close to him. Ming-hee gives a slight smile and thinks that not even bullets can hit him because of the luck he has. So what are the chances of a comet hitting him in such a big world like that? He then, driving at full speed, begins to realize that the shine of that comet was getting brighter and brighter, indicating that it was getting closer and closer to him. He then can't believe it, looking towards the comet. His eyes widened as he watched the comet, which by that moment was just a few meters away from him. The comet then hits Ming-hee directly, causing huge destruction at the site. A huge dust cloud rises at the impact site of that comet. The dust gradually dissipates until we see Ming-hee lying in the middle of all that dust, while a bubble begins to fly towards him. It was a bubble with a different aspect, shining brightly. This bubble then goes to Ming-hee's chest and begins to enter his body. This bubble was like a system that was viewing Ming-hee's stats. The system then discovers that Ming-hee's extraordinary power is luck, and that his devour attribute is ineffective, and his parasite attribute is ineffective. Basically, Ming-hee only had the luck attribute at maximum, while his other attributes were 0. A goddess then appears inside this bubble, carefully evaluating all of Ming-hee's information. The goddess's system identifies that enemies are approaching. The best choice then was to identify a host, and after that, coexist with him. The goddess then opens the protagonist's soul while the integration was being completed. Now she delves deeper into his knowledge. The goddess then realizes that this host has no fighting abilities, so he would easily die in combat. That said, the goddess grants him extraordinary combat powers. Ming-He then feels a powerful energy overflowing through his hands. He then clenches his fist with huge energy overflowing throughout his body. He has just gained the mysterious dark fists. The goddess's system now begins to assess the protagonist's talent rank. A mysterious red energy begins to envelop Ming-He's entire body. His talent rank is now Red Honor. The goddess then gives a slight smile while seeing all the energy that the protagonist has just received and says that, at least now, he can be considered a fighter. Some time passes, and we see a heart rate monitor. Ming-He is unconscious with an oxygen mask. Ming-He is lying with several wires connected to his body. One of the doctors informs the nurse that Ming-He's body is in good condition, but unfortunately, because of the trauma he had, he will probably be in a coma for a long time. The nurse asks the doctor to rest assured that she will take very good care of him. At this moment, a nurse opens the door calling for Dr. Zhao. She tells him that an astronomy group sent a small sample of the comet's blood in the hope that it could help them test it. The doctor then says it's okay, and everyone leaves the room, leaving Ming-He resting alone in that dark room. Some days pass, and a girl brings flowers to Ming-He, who is still in a coma. It was Luquan, holding the flowers, sad to see Ming-He in that situation, and she was also holding a letter. A month then passes, and the group of students who mocked Ming-He in the evaluation visit him in the hospital. One of the students regrets, saying that all he wanted to be was extraordinary. Another student mocks, saying that Ming-He took the teasing too seriously. The blonde student asks why Ming-He took it personally, since even with emotions running high, he should be more cautious. The blonde student then looks to the side and notices something. He sees that bouquet of flowers and that there was a pink letter in it. He decides to take the letter to see what was inside, while another student says that Ming-He needs to get better soon so he can look for a good job, since hospital bills are usually very expensive, and he even heard that Ming-He's sister is in several jobs to be able to pay these bills. The blonde student then takes the letter in his hands and realizes that the letter came from Luquan, and that she even responded to Ming-He's confession. The blonde student is frustrated, imagining how a beautiful girl like her responded to the confession of a jerk like Ming-He, especially since it's hard to say if he will really come out of that coma. The student then, with a terrifying look, takes and tears the entire letter, so if Ming-He comes out of the coma, he will never know that he once received it. 1 year passes, and the city remains as calm as ever. Suddenly, a noise comes from the sewers. A huge hand starts to lift the sewer lid to get out. A gigantic cockroach climbs to the surface. At that moment, the city sirens start to wail, announcing that a huge number of mutants have emerged in the city on the southwest side, and the entire population needs to evacuate urgently. The hospital sirens then start to wail. All doctors and nurses panic, as the sirens are not a good sign. All nurses, doctors, and patients start running desperately towards the exit, while one of the nurses runs in the opposite direction. The security guard, also desperate, shouts for Dr. Zhao to flee immediately. The doctor is completely shocked by the situation. The nurse who ran in the opposite direction of the exit keeps running with all her might. She is extremely worried, as one of the students is in a coma in room 409, and he was left behind. She thinks that even if he never wakes up again, he should not be left behind in that way, with so many monsters invading the hospital. She then heads to Ming-He's room, and at that moment, one of the giant cockroaches appears on the ceiling right behind her. She then opens the door to the room, desperate with the whole situation. Ming-He was still with his eyes closed. The nurse then grabs Ming-He's arm and shakes it in hopes of waking him up so that both can escape from there. At that moment, she is startled when she looks ahead. She then sees, through the window's reflection, that one of the giant cockroaches was behind her. She is completely terrified as the giant cockroach licks her face with its tongue. The nurse is in shock while still holding Ming-He's arm. The cockroach is clinging to her, saying how delicious that nurse must be. At that moment, Ming-He clenches his fists tightly and delivers a powerful punch to the cockroach, causing a huge explosion at the location. Ming-He remains with his eyes closed. Now he is awake, full of energy, as he removes all those cables connected to his body, his fist still overflowing with energy after that punch to the mutant cockroach. The protagonist then looks seriously at the nurse. At that very moment, a huge horde of giant cockroaches was climbing the hospital, when a huge explosion was caused by Ming-He's punch. Ming-He's punch completely destroyed the top part of the cockroach, and it also destroyed 3 layers of walls of the hospital. The nurse is crouched down, scared by everything. The rest of the cockroach then kneels and falls to the ground lifeless, while Ming-He stands tall, full of energy. The nurse was already crying a lot at that moment, scared of the cockroach, but Ming-hee asks her not to worry, as the mutant cockroach was already dead. He then extends his hand and asks if the nurse can stand up. He takes the opportunity to thank Nurse Song for taking care of him for so long while he was unconscious. Nurse Song then sits on the bed still scared and thanks Ming-hee for saving her, and even asks when he woke up. He then changes the subject, asking if they were not in Nanchang Hospital, and he also asks how so many mutant cockroaches ended up there. Nurse Song then says that the superiors informed that contaminated fluid entered the sewers, and after that, numerous mutant parasites appeared throughout the city. He then asks what happened to the people living near the hospital. The nurse, still in tears, replies that probably the population is being evacuated to a safe place. The nurse also says that she does not know more details, as she was worried about Ming-hee and ended up running towards his room, separating from the others. Nurse Song also says that she was very worried that a mutant cockroach had reached Ming-hee's room and was trying to devour him. Ming-hee then smiles, thanking the nurse for not abandoning him. The nurse, still worried, says she was just doing her job as a nurse, but she still had a doubt if he was just a student or not. After all, how could a student like him kill a mutant cockroach of that size with just one punch? He then becomes embarrassed and starts to think that he trained combat techniques for a whole year. Nurse Song is confused to see him with that expression. Ming-hee then says they should hurry and get out of there to the evacuation group. At that moment, the hospital was already completely infested with mutant cockroaches. He then starts walking towards one of the walls that broke from his punch. He sees numerous mutant cockroaches in that corridor. Ming-hee then asks Nurse Song to please wait there for a moment. The mutant cockroaches, hungry, rush towards Ming-hee as soon as they spot him. Ming-hee then becomes serious, clenches his fist tightly, and waits for the cockroaches to get closer to him. And when they get close enough, he delivers a powerful punch that disintegrates several cockroaches at once. The cockroaches that were not hit become afraid of that enormous power. However, Ming-hee starts running at full speed towards them, delivering a strong punch to the face of one cockroach, and to another mutant cockroach, his punch makes a hole in its belly. As he approaches another mutant cockroach, he gathers energy in his fist and delivers a punch that completely disintegrates the cockroach's belly, splitting it in half. Ming-hee then is startled to look back and see Nurse Song screaming because one of the cockroaches was flying towards her. He then sees a pot with a green liquid on the table. He then runs to the table and punches it, making all the objects fly. He looks at the pot and reads that the green liquid is sulfuric acid. Ming-hee then punches the flask, destroying it and making the sulfuric acid fly onto his fist, making the acid completely surround his hand. At that moment, the cockroach was already close to devouring the nurse, so Ming-hee yells "Acid Fist" and completely explodes the cockroach's head with his wind blast mixed with sulfuric acid. Ming-hee, at that moment, has an intense green glow in his hand after breaking the sulfuric acid on it. Ming-hee then starts looking at his fist with that green glow and thinks that he practiced this technique countless times in his head, but he had never tested if it really would work. The nurse is surprised to see that and asks if Ming-hee's superpower is directly related to his fist. Ming-hee then becomes embarrassed, saying that he was still a student who even failed the exam he had last year. Nurse Song can't believe it, asking if the examiners are blind. After all, with all that power he demonstrated so far, he could be considered a rank pyro superhuman at least. Ming-hee, upon hearing this, remembers the day of the exam when he took the test and got white dust as a rank. Ming-hee then looks at that place and asks how the cockroaches got so scared like that. After all, what fluid was able to leave them like that? The nurse then replies that, to make matters worse, there are not only cockroaches in the sewers, so there will probably be other different mutant monsters. The protagonist then becomes worried and asks if there might not be more sulfuric acid around there, as it would be very useful. After that, still in the city, a bus was calmly traveling until two giant eyes appear under the bridge. Then, the bridge is destroyed right in front of the bus. The people inside the bus become desperate with what that could be. The entire bridge in front of the bus begins to collapse. The passengers panic when they see what was coming from below and start screaming that they were giant cockroaches. All the passengers start to panic. One of the passengers, also in panic, calls emergency services saying that a surreal number of monsters appeared on Nanchang Bridge and that he urgently requested support from superhumans. When one of the cockroaches was almost devouring people, a bullet goes through its head. The people then look outside and see smoke coming from a gun and also see a shiny emblem on the person's clothes. A superhuman gunslinger had just arrived to help them. The people then, completely frightened, look through the broken bus window and see that cockroach dead from the shot. The gunslinger then asks everyone to calm down, that he was a rank pyro superhuman, and he would take care of all those disgusting cockroaches. The gunslinger is then surrounded by several cockroaches, but he manages to shoot all of them in the head, while saying that no matter how many of them come at him, after all, his superpower is infinite ammunition. That said, all those cockroaches would go to hell. A cockroach then gets very close to the gunslinger, but he takes a huge leap, and from up high, he starts shooting non-stop with his pistols, hitting the head of all the cockroaches. The gunslinger then falls back onto the bus, since he had finished off all the cockroaches that were close by. However, he is startled to feel a horrifying presence behind him. The gunslinger then turns around and realizes he was facing a giant rat, extremely larger than all those cockroaches. Then, an explosion is caused on top of the bus where the two were. The bus passengers were in shock at that scene. They were facing that giant rat while it completely devoured the gunslinger's body. Panic only increased among them as all they could scream for was help. Returning then to the hospital, Nurse Song and Ming He are sneaking away from that place. The nurse still asks if they were followed by the monsters. Ming He replies that probably not, since no mutant cockroach attacked them so far. The nurse then gets scared looking ahead and sees the city bridge destroyed. The nurse then, worried, says that looking from there it seems like she's seeing the last bus that left the hospital right where the bridge is broken, so probably the people are in danger. At that moment, a phone near them rings, informing that there is an incident in the city of Nancheng. The phone also informs that a giant mutant rat appeared on the bridge, and that apparently the rank pyro superhuman, Twin Guns, is no longer alive. Ming, he then crouches down and picks up that phone while it still rings, saying that no registered superhuman is near the location. Ming, he then, picking up the phone, asks please to give him all the information about that giant rat, such as its powers, strength, and weakness. The phone then informs that the giant rat is weak against fire, but right after saying that, they ask who is the person speaking to them on the phone, if that person was even a superhuman. Ming, he then replies that he was just a student who failed the entrance exam for the superhuman school. The phone then starts shouting, asking if he is an idiot by any chance, since that demonic giant rat is a general rank monster. So, why was Ming He asking for that information, since he can't do anything about it? Ming He then starts walking, while the phone keeps shouting, saying that theoretical knowledge is useless, so Ming He should urgently seek shelter. Ming He then, with a serious look, says that the hospital staff took care of him for a year while he was unconscious, so Ming He cannot let them die that way. The giant rat, at that moment, was holding the huge bus in its hands. The giant rat then approaches with a demonic look while seeing the desperation of all the passengers. Ming He and Nurse Song watch from afar what that rat was doing and conclude that it was just playing with its prey. Ming He then stands up and asks Nurse Song to hide and not to leave there, no matter what happens. The nurse, also worried about him, asks if he really was going to confront the demonic rat. After all, he could be killed by the rat. Ming He then fixes his gaze on the nurse and smiles, asking if when a patient is in danger, the nurses just stand still and do nothing. Just as the nurses ran to help, Ming He will also do the same. The nurse then looks worriedly at Ming He, imagining that the worst could happen. Ming He then clenches his fist tightly and runs towards the giant rat, saying that he won't know the result if he doesn't try. The rat, which was devouring the bus, doesn't notice Ming He approaching, and then receives a powerful punch that makes it stop biting the bus immediately. Ming He, concerned about the situation he is in, thinks that an ordinary cockroach is the size of a thumb, and after mutation, they became the size of a human being. Ming He then starts to look at the giant rat's paws and says that the mutation of that rat was on another level. The mutation made the demonic rat grow to the size of a building. Still worried, Ming He imagines that with a giant body like that, if by chance its claws hit him head-on, they would probably cut through to the bones, tearing him apart. If that happens, Ming He won't be able to save those people anymore. The demonic rat then attacks Ming He with everything it has, who manages to dodge while thinking that rats by nature are extremely agile, so this would be a problem. The rat then runs, opening its mouth trying to devour Ming He whole. Ming He keeps running away while thinking that he cannot let the demonic rat even touch him. Not even once. Ming He continues running away as fast as he can, imagining that he needs to get as far away from the bus as possible so that the rat follows him, and the people are not in danger. The giant rat then tries to bite Ming He when he was on top of a car, but Ming He jumps at high speed, causing the giant rat to bite a car that was in its way. Ming-Hee takes advantage of the fact that the monster's mouth was busy biting that car and sees an opening to attack. Ming-Hee then punches the air, sending a powerful purple energy towards the giant rat. This energy hits the demonic rat with full force, causing a huge explosion. Ming-Hee then looks ahead after the explosion dissipates and realizes that the demonic rat was lying on the ground after the impact. Ming-Hee looks at the closed eyes of the giant rat and wonders if the rat fainted after receiving that powerful blow. Ming-Hee then starts walking towards the giant rat, wondering if he should deliver the final blow at that moment. As he walked towards the giant rat, he began to think that he should still be wary, since animals like rats are clever and tend to play dead to get out of a tight situation. Right after Ming-Hee thinks this, the rat opens its terrifying eyes. The rat then splits the car it was biting in half while tossing another car into the air with its enormous strength. The demonic rat then begins to destroy the entire area, causing Ming-Hee to need to run at full speed to escape from that heap of cars falling from the sky, while still needing to flee from that giant rat with a thirst for blood. Ming-Hee, as he flees, begins to think that he was not in a good situation. Apparently only the strength of his fists will not be enough to kill a general rank monster like that giant rat. Ming-Hee then looks at an overturned car and sees its gasoline spilled on the ground. He then focuses and has a brilliant idea. Ming-Hee then starts running next to a red car. The frenzied demonic rat destroys this car while Ming-Hee changes direction, going to the opposite side. Ming-Hee was running in zigzag while the demonic rat followed him at all costs, trying to devour him. There comes a moment when the giant rat stops its pursuit while drooling heavily, wanting to devour Ming-Hee. The demonic rat stopped because Ming-Hee also stopped running. Ming-Hee had lured the giant rat to that huge puddle of gasoline. The giant rat just stands there, not understanding why Ming-Hee was standing still there. Ming-Hee then, with a confident look, takes out a lighter and throws it on the ground. At that moment, Nurse Song approaches the bus and asks Dr. Lin if everyone there is okay. Dr. Lin sees that it is Nurse Song and says he is glad to see that she is okay. Dr. Lin then says that he doesn't know if he hit his head or something, but he was seeing a superhuman fighting the demonic rat, and this superhuman is wearing the hospital patient's clothes. Is he imagining things? Said Dr. Lin. At that moment, the lighter Ming-Hee threw on the ground hits the gasoline leaking from the car, and immediately causes a huge explosion that was seen by everyone near the bus. The fire was getting higher and higher. The demonic rat was completely on fire. The demonic rat tried desperately to put out the fire that covered its entire body except its head. The despair of the demonic rat was expressive. Ming-Hee thinks that he did well to remember that during his conversation on the phone a little while ago, they informed that the weakness of the demonic rat was fire. Ming-Hee then puts his arm into the flames, saying that that intense fire will be part of his strength at that moment, and the flames will help him gain more power. Ming-Hee then, with his fists on fire, says that a filthy monster that lives in the sewers dared to come up to the city and had the audacity to hurt people. That filthy rat will now feel the taste of his fists, said Ming-Hee, while the demonic rat is completely panicked with nowhere to run since there was fire everywhere. Ming-Hee then attacks the demonic rat with his flaming fist. Ming-Hee is full of confidence, while the demonic rat is completely desperate. The people on the bus are surprised by everything they are witnessing. Ming-Hee then shouts, "Fist of the burning flames," and completely disintegrates the demonic rat, as well as creates a huge trail of destruction with the impact of his blow. A nurse who witnessed all that starts shouting that he really managed to kill that demonic rat, and finally, everyone was safe. This same nurse, while shouting, asks if the boy who defeated the giant rat is indeed a high-ranking superhuman, and if so, why is he wearing hospital patient clothes from the hospital where they work? Another nurse asks if it wasn't the student who was in a coma in room 409 for a year. This nurse says she doesn't remember his name very well. At that moment, Nurse Song smiles and says that his name is Ming-Hee and that he is a student who was rejected in the entrance exam of the superhuman school. Ming-Hee, at that moment, was overflowing with confidence after defeating the giant rat. After all this, we now move to the command post. A general contacts Lucian, saying that it is no longer necessary for her to go to the site, as that general-ranked monster has been killed. Lucian then stops moving, saying that the news was great, as probably everyone is okay with the monster dead. The barracks general replies that yes, someone went to the site and helped everyone by defeating the giant rat. Lucian then asks who was responsible for killing the general-ranked giant rat. She would like to personally thank the person who managed to kill it. The barracks general, who by the way has a wonderful body, replies that she has no information about the person responsible for such an achievement, as it seems that it was an unregistered superhuman and probably not the rude student she has in mind. That said, probably another strong superhuman must have run there to help. The barracks general still asks if they can't find the source of that contamination yet. If they don't find it soon, she fears that in the future, there will be many more creatures like that one. So at the moment, all that can be done is to evacuate everyone in Nanchung and only then quarantine the affected areas. After the fight, everyone went to the rescue station. Nurse Song is tending to Ming-hee's arm wounds, commenting that he was amazing and that without a doubt if it weren't for him, the people on the bus would not have survived. Ming-hee then smiles shyly after hearing that. At that moment, a girl approaches the guards, shouting that her brother is still inside the hospital in a coma. The guard informs her that, unfortunately, he cannot let her in as the area is isolated. The guard then explains that they have already evacuated and quarantined Nancheng Hospital. At that moment, only superhumans are authorized to enter as it was very dangerous. The girl, crying, says she doesn't care about any of that, as her brother is there and she needs to save him.
If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and like the video. Thank you.